Welcome to the Decarbonising the Building Industry podcast, where we explore the future of sustainable urban development. The DBI initiative is more than just a network. It's a powerful movement driving the building industry towards a resilient, low-carbon future. By uniting researchers, industry leaders, and policymakers, DBI is paving the way for innovative, energy-efficient buildings that align with global net zero 2050 goals. In each episode, we bring you the voices of those at the forefront of this transformation. Today, we will hear from Jason Hughes, who will share his journey, aspirations, and the groundbreaking projects he is leading to decarbonize the building industry. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Fanni. Happy to be here.
May I ask you to introduce yourself and your connection to the DBI network?
I'm a director of Spark Projects. We're a Melbourne-based property developer and project management company. We're driving a push at the moment into low emissions concrete and modular precast technologies. We see a lot of potential in that, obviously, as far as the decarbonisation initiatives are concerned, but also productivity and revolutionising the way that the construction industry looks at construction and the way that buildings are built. Several research programs are currently being run with the University of Melbourne. We're about to launch a number of patents for some exciting new technologies, which is great. So I've got a passion in construction technology and innovative methodologies. I'm a really strong advocate for modular prefabricated technologies. I believe it's going to address critical skill shortages and the rising construction costs that we're currently being hit with at the moment. So I'm a founding member of the DBI through Spark, and we're keenly involved, as I discussed, in a number of decarbonisation initiatives in conjunction with the University of Melbourne. And outside of work and the DBI, I am a Carlton Blues AFL tragic. Unfortunately, this year didn't go so well for us. So that's what I spend my spare time doing.
I understand your interests. Can you also describe why did you join the DBI itself?
So the DBI is quite a unique organisation. We, along with several of the other founding partners and universities, saw a gap in the market where there's no one central body that really brings together thought leadership and on decarbonisation activities from around the world. There's a lot of interest, obviously, in the industry, from construction and development industry, in terms of decarbonisation. What is it? How can we get there? What are the different methodologies? What are the different certifications? All of that sort of thing. But there's no real nexus of bringing together all of that information. And that's why we've joined the DBI. That's why we're excited what the DBI stands for and really excited by the potential of the DBI to really push forward the decarbonisation activities and the innovations that are really needed in the construction industry if we're going to move towards a net zero future, as the construction industry and its supply chains are a huge contributor to, obviously, greenhouse gas emissions. So it's one of those industries that really hasn't seen a lot of innovation in the past 50 years, and decarbonisation efforts are really quite stagnant. We see the DBI as a real catalyst for change in the industry to disseminate best practice, cutting-edge research, thought leadership and ideas through not only just Australia, but obviously the world with our international partners. And we're very excited by, as I said, the prospect of what the DBI can achieve.
With other challenges, such as the housing affordability, do you think that DBI can help solve the housing affordability with decarbonisation efforts? I'm asking this because it seems a bit opposing initiatives that we need more houses, but we also know that the building industry is almost the biggest carbon emitter. So how can we solve the, for example, housing affordability crisis while also decarbonising the building industry?
That's a really good point, a really common misconception around decarbonisation and the green activities, designs, materials. The misconception is that they are opposing, in that if you want to create a building with a low embodied carbon content or an eco-friendly building, that inherently comes with more cost, which is not the case at all. Certain elements of it may be more expensive, but there are ways, and we'll discuss later in the podcast, there are ways where we can create very low embodied carbon containing buildings while still maintaining great profitability and even increased productivity and profitability from those construction methods. Because a lot of people do not understand, are lacking a little bit of understanding around what decarbonisation is, what options there are, what are the leading practices and the methodologies that are being practiced around the world. And as I said, that's where we really see the DBI stepping in, is to really just have that education, all the different players within the industry, the developers from the inception of the ideas all the way through to the subcontractors actually carrying out the work. So they do seem like opposing ideas, but that's certainly not the case. And we're excited by the prospect of bringing some of our research and commercialising some of our activities and initiatives that we've been working on, as I said, lately with the university.
We will get back to the opportunities, but before that, I assume that the misconceptions are huge challenges for decarbonizing the building industry. What are the biggest challenges in this field?
I see the challenges for decarbonisation in the construction industry as threefold. As we touched on, there's a bit of a lack of understanding around carbon emissions, embodied carbon, what we can do to reduce those emissions. And I suppose really the education piece is really critical to have that baseline level of knowledge out there in the industry that people can draw upon and rely upon, and have that in mind from the outset. And that sort of brings me to the second point, is that the way we design many of our buildings, not all of them, but a vast majority, decarbonisation, embodied carbon, is a bit of an afterthought. It's mainly driven by two things: aesthetics and profitability, and then obviously decarbonisation and embodied carbon, Green Star certification, that sort of thing. That is a bit of a box tick or an afterthought. They're not designed from the outset for constructability. It's the way the industry is systemically set up at the moment that's a little bit of an issue that needs to change. And it is changing slowly, but there needs to be more of a focus on creating designs that are inherently easy to construct in terms of reducing the carbon emissions and obviously the materials used in their embodied carbon. That is changing with obviously the rapid rise of EPDs for products, environmental product declarations. So it is changing slowly, but it needs to move a bit faster. And look, the third issue that we see is profits. Especially in today's construction industry, it's very difficult to make projects stack up with the rising cost of construction. And really, if a development isn't going to stack up, then the decarbonisation of it is not really high on the priority list. So first and foremost, the focus on profits is really a hindrance to decarbonisation in a way. So no one really wants to be the first to try anything new, and the building industry and the contractors who are building these buildings are inherently operating on very low margins. So there is not a lot of room for mistakes or to try something new, as it can have catastrophic consequences for contractors if it goes awry. So there's three main issues that we see: is the lack of understanding, the design side of things, and also the profits and lack of risk appetite from the actual contractors themselves.
And then leaving this doom and gloom behind, what are the biggest opportunities in this field?
In terms of decarbonisation in the construction industry, we see prefabrication, modularisation, or standardisation of building as the key opportunity. We have a little bit of prefabrication, and there's been a number of initiatives over the years. But if we look at the amount of labour, for instance, that is required to build, let's just say, one wall in a house. So first you've got to have your carpenters and chippies to build the timber frame or the steel frame, whatever it may be. Then you've got to have your plumbers, electricians, and mechanical trades to come and run all of the cables, pipe work, everything through the wall. You've got your insulation and plasterers to come through and finish the walls, and then you've got the painter, and obviously the trades have to come and fit off any of the power points or services as well. So that one wall, for instance, is a huge amount of labour required. And the problem with how we build at the moment is that we build a majority of our buildings in situ on site. So if you think about all of those trades having to come to site, drive to site, that's huge in terms of the carbon emissions that creates alone. So in terms of prefabrication, modularisation, that same wall can be built in a factory very quickly, very easily with robotics, automation, and prefabricated and essentially assembled on site. There's a reason why IKEA is very successful and with their flat pack products. IKEA doesn't have their carpenters and furniture makers come out to your house and construct the chair or your chest of drawers on site and manufacture there. So I'd say a vast majority of industries have seen a lot of automation and move towards prefabrication, modularisation, especially manufacturing. You look at how a car assembly line has changed over the past 50, 100 years. Previously, back in the day when Mr. Ford was creating the first production lines, there is a lot of labour required in that as well. However, over the years, this has changed. There's a lot of robotics involved. There's a lot of technology used, and cars are essentially prefabricated. Yes, there are some options. You can choose what wheels, you can choose to put in a nicer sound system, whatever you want to do. But that is an industry that has moved very successfully towards modularisation, prefabrication and construction. Although there are a lot of challenges to that modularisation, prefabrication, there's no real reason why more modularisation can't occur. That same wall, as I discussed earlier, can be built in a factory. and essentially put on the back of a truck and stood up on site. And essentially 80 to 90% of that work can be done in a factory in controlled environments where you get better quality, but it also creates a much faster, much more rapid construction on site. As we all know, time is money. So as I discussed earlier, that whole misconception around decarbonisation being at odds with productivity and profitability really isn't quite true when you start drilling down into the detail of what is achievable these days with the technology that we have, the rise of artificial intelligence. Anything's achievable, and we really see that modularisation and prefabrication is the largest opportunity in the past 100 years to decarbonise the building industry, firstly, but also to enhance productivity. And you touched on the labour shortages and the critical housing issues that we're facing in this country. And as I said, modularisation, prefabrication, you can rapidly construct housing of a high quality on site through these techniques. And I think there's a bit of a common misconception around prefabricated buildings being cheap, nasty, like the portable classrooms that we all used to sit in as children. It's come a long way since there. Yeah, we're just starting to see some really interesting, really cutting edge technology come through in the prefabrication side of thing of construction.
Prefabrication and modularization and robotics and automation are huge opportunities for decarbonization. You also mentioned that there are big misconceptions of what decarbonization means. What does decarbonization mean?
So in terms of decarbonisation, a lot of people think, oh, just this building material here, it's a bit greener, so we're going to use that one. And decarbonisation really means looking at the whole product life cycle, the whole life cycle of the construction of a building, everywhere from, as I mentioned earlier, how far and how many trades have to travel, that'll cost CO2 emissions, all the way through to the construction practices, how much energy is actually required to construct these buildings on site. And obviously the material side of things is also a very large part of the emissions. So decarbonising looks at the entire life cycle of the production of any said building. So every single activity involved in the construction of a building is part of the carbon footprint of that building. As I said, anywhere from the carpenter getting in his car and having to drive 30 minutes to the site in the morning, all the way through to the type of glass you're using, the type of production techniques that glass is used to produce. And as I mentioned earlier, we're really starting to get there and looking at the embodied carbon in our construction materials through the rise of EPDs and really drilling down into those materials libraries to see what that embodied carbon looks like. But there hasn't been a lot of progress on the activities side of construction in terms of how we actually build and how much labour it takes us to build. So as we mentioned earlier, we see that prefabrication and modularisation is a really key lever in decarbonising. We're getting pretty good at looking at what we build with, but there is still a long way to go, especially in Australia, with how we build and the embodied carbon and the carbon emissions associated with the methodologies and the designs of what we build.
That sounds fascinating, and I am very curious. What kind of projects are you working on? Can you tell us about any projects regarding decarbonization?
As you probably might have guessed, as me going on and on about it, we're working on several projects with mainly the University of Melbourne. We are constructing a highly automated precast concrete plant that uses a lot of, I suppose, innovative materials in terms of concrete mix design, low carbon concrete mix design. It's got some pretty interesting properties, but we're looking at enacting a ecosystem whereby we're able to rapidly construct townhouses, houses using prefabricated concrete elements in a way that hasn't really been done before in Australia, and enables us to use very low emissions materials, but more importantly, it enables us to construct dwellings very quickly and with very minimal amounts of labour on site. And we use a lot of automation technology. And importantly, as I mentioned, being a developer, we're able to control the design from the outset to be able to manufacture based on the constraints of our factory and based on the methodologies that we want to use on site. So there's a term, it's called design for manufacture and assembly, and that's really at the core of what we're trying to achieve with our construction ecosystem. Because we see apartments are great in inner city, but not everybody wants to live in an apartment building, which is fair enough. And by being able to construct townhouses, duplexes, even greenfield residential homes very quickly at a very high quality and with a very low carbon footprint, we see that as a real opportunity in the industry at the moment. We're working on just several aspects to it. It's quite an ambitious project, but we're about to launch a few patents for that, as we've had some great research undertaken by the team at the university, and we've had having a number of spin-off projects and a lot of interest. I mentioned earlier, there is an opportunity to construct faster, cheaper, with lower embodied carbon, which is basically the trifecta which we're trying to achieve, which isn't easy. But someone said to me when I was much younger that nothing worth doing is ever easy. So it's good advice. And we're quite excited by that. And as I said, stay tuned and we'll hopefully be able to share more coming months once we get things up and running.
And where can people find more about these projects beside the rndbi.org website?
So we'll be launching a new website shortly. The company is called Carbonix, Karbonix. And there'll be a lot of information on there around what we're doing. As I said, we're quite excited to share with everybody. It's been a few years in the making. I think I've spent half of my time in Europe at every single concrete factory on the continent. So it's been an interesting journey. Yeah, we're really hoping that it's something that's a bit of a game changer in the industry. Quite excited by the prospects of it, honestly.
Jason, thank you so much for your time and please keep up the good work. This is very important. As a last question, what would you like people to know about DBI?
DBI is for everybody. We run a lot of seminars, a lot of workshops where you can come along to and learn a lot of information from some of the leading minds in the world that, quite frankly, normally very difficult to get access to. So DBI is applicable to everyone, as I mentioned, from developers, to builders, to subcontractors, to designers. Everybody can benefit from it. And it is set up for exactly that. It's a vehicle to disseminate information to people and to really bring together the industry so that we can move forward collectively as an industry and try and tackle this challenge of decarbonisation, which obviously is quite the challenge, but it's going to take all aspects of the supply chain and all aspects of the industry to move together and to try and tackle these things together rather than trying to do things in isolation. There's no point trying to do something by yourself when you can work as a team. So that's what the DBI is. We're all about collaboration, inclusion, and really delving into and rolling sleeves up to get into those issues that are quite difficult and quite challenging to talk about and to address. Nonetheless, as I said, if we're moving towards a world where we're trying to be carbon neutral, then the construction industry needs to change and trying and quite successfully getting out there, getting into all of these issues and trying to tackle the hard parts of the industry. Come along, get involved. And if you have any questions, reach out to myself or the team at DBI. We're very friendly and always happy to chat to new people because the more people we get involved, the more left field thinking we can get into the DBI, the better everybody is.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks, Fanni.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Decarbonising the Building Industry podcast. We hope you found today's conversation with Jason Hughes insightful and inspiring as we work together toward a more sustainable future. If you are passionate about transforming the building industry and want to stay connected with the latest developments, we invite you to join the DBI network on LinkedIn. You can also visit our website, where we regularly share updates on upcoming events, project progress, and the innovative solutions driving our missions forward. Let's continue the conversation and build a greener tomorrow together.